Welcome to the deep dive. So, if you're like a lot of parents, you've probably read the books, maybe taken the courses, but when your child is actually lying or stealing or just flat out defying you, somehow all that advice just seems to vanish.
Yeah, it goes right out the window, doesn't it?
It really does. Today we're taking a deep, really transformative look into the instructional work of Brian Post. It's all about using neuroscience to completely rethink these really challenging behaviors in kids.
Mm-hmm. And our goal here, our mission really, is to give you a kind of shortcut, a shortcut to understanding the why these moments happen and feel so overwhelming. And it all hinges on this one core idea we have to get right away.
Okay, what's that?
It's this. When you, the parent, get stressed, your whole body, your cellular system, it constricts. It goes into survival mode.
Yeah.
Fear, anger, maybe panic.
Right, fight or flight.
Exactly. And when that happens, your higher functions, clear thinking, emotional connection, they get suppressed. Gone.
And crucially, your short-term memory too, right? Brian Post talks about that a lot. You literally forget the great technique you just learned 5 minutes ago.
Precisely. He keeps coming back to this idea of elevating your internal state. He calls it reinforcing a higher vibration or frequency. But he's super clear, this isn't some quick fix you just master.
No, it's a journey.
It's a total journey. It's about learning to regulate yourself first, so then you have a chance of helping regulate your child.
Okay, so let's unpack that stress survival link a bit more in this first section. When you're stressed, maybe even terrified, your brain basically screams, threat.
And Brian Post points out that when a parent slips into that survival mode, suddenly the child's behavior, maybe their tantrum, their no, gets perceived as the threat, a threat that has to be stopped now.
Right, so instead of thinking about support or connection or relationship, your focus instantly snaps to controlling them, suppressing the behavior, changing them.
Because your primal brain is just trying to survive the moment. It's not thinking long-term relationship building.
And the neuroscience behind this is pretty clear, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Brian Post lays it out. Stress literally makes thinking confused, distorted. It's toxic to complex thought. And you mentioned memory.
Yeah, hippocampus.
Right. Stress suppresses the hippocampus. That's your hub for short-term memory. So if your hippocampus is offline because of stress,
Yeah.
you cannot access those calm, thoughtful parenting strategies you know. They're just unavailable.
Okay, so what about that instant reaction, that flare-up we feel? We usually call it a stress response.
Brian Post makes a really vital distinction here. He says it's not actually a response. A response implies thought, a choice. Stress triggers a stress reaction. It's automatic, it's emotional, it's not cognitive. It's your amygdala, the fear center, just firing off instantly, completely bypassing your thinking brain.
That feeling of being hijacked.
That's exactly it. You feel hijacked by your own biology.
Okay, so if it starts right there, biologically, with stress hormones and breathing, how do we possibly interrupt that in the heat of the moment?
Well, the most powerful tool Brian Post offers, and maybe the fastest, is incredibly simple. It's breathing.
Just breathing.
Just breathing. Deliberately slowing your breath. He says nothing dials down cortisol faster, nothing calms the nervous system quicker, and nothing restores that feeling of internal power, that calm, like taking a few deep, slow breaths.
And the amazing part is how that affects the child, right? The mirror neurons.
Exactly. When you shift your own internal frequency just by breathing, you automatically send out these regulating signals, mirror neurons, to your child's nervous system. You essentially become the calm anchor in their storm.
It's like you're lending them your calm.
You are. And Brian Post really emphasizes this. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do physically is nothing. Just stop, stand still, breathe deeply, be present. That is the action.
Doing no thing as the most powerful action. I like that.
Regulating yourself first. That's the core.
That idea perfectly sets us up for section 2, lying. Because Brian Post's approach here really flips the script on how we usually handle it.
Oh, completely. We have to start with a totally new paradigm. Forget thinking the lie is the start of the problem. Brian Post says the child is probably already super stressed, highly anxious, before they even tell the lie.
So the lie is like a symptom.
It's a behavioral symptom of that internal stress. They're already in a bad state.
Okay. And then we, the parent, catch them. We do the big confrontation, did you take that cookie?
Right. And what happens? Their stress level, already high, just skyrockets. That confrontation, especially for kids with any trauma history, lights up the brainstem.
Where trauma is stored.
Chemically, physically stored. So that confrontation doesn't just feel like being told off. To their nervous system, it can feel like the worst thing that ever happened to them is about to happen again.
Wow. Okay.
So their only priority in that moment is survival. And lying feels like the quickest way to make the threat, the confrontation go away.
That context really changes how you hear that story about Mahatma Gandhi, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The one where his grandson lies to him.
Yeah. And Gandhi doesn't yell, doesn't punish. He walks 15 miles home. Why? To repent, he says, for whatever I have done that would scare you so much that lying felt necessary.
It's about taking ultimate responsibility for the safety in the relationship, which leads directly to Brian Post's formula for lying. It's memorable. Ignore the lie. Don't ignore the child.
Okay, I can hear people pushing back already. Ignore the lie. Won't that just teach them it's okay to lie?
That reaction comes straight from our own fear, our own need to control, right? Brian Post says your first job isn't correction, it's connection and regulation. So step 1, parent breathes first.
Yeah.
Always.
Get yourself calm.
Get yourself calm. Step 2, look at the child. Make eye contact if possible and say something simple like, we're going to be okay. And then this is key, walk away.
Walk away. Why walk away? Seems counterintuitive.
You have to break the escalating stress cycle. Walking away gives both of you physical space to calm down. It lets the stress hormones dissipate and gives the bonding hormone, oxytocin, a chance to come online. You only go back when you are genuinely calm.
Not just pretending to be calm.
No, actually feeling it. When you've shifted your internal frequency, maybe to curiosity or courage, but definitely not anger or accusation.
And then the conversation you have when you return. Brian Post is really specific about the language, isn't he?
Very specific.
Yeah.
Because words carry energy. He advises using language that takes the personal attack out of it. Say, when you tell me a lie.
Not when you lie to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Focus on the action, not labeling the child. Then you share the impact on you. Something like, it scares me when that happens. It makes me sad because it makes me feel like you don't trust me. And then the crucial part,
If you don't trust me, I can't keep you safe.
that's the core message. That's the anchor. And Brian Post explains that when you deliver that message from a place of genuine calm, genuine regulation, the child doesn't just hear the words, they feel the emotional truth of it. And that emotional impact, combined with doing it consistently, repetition, that's what starts to rewire the brain.
Right.
Because the brain remembers how it went last time. If last time ended in safety and connection, the brain is more likely to choose that path next time.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's shift gears slightly to section 3, stealing. Brian Post has a pretty stark way of defining this one, too. Not just bad behavior, but an addiction.
Yeah, that's a really powerful frame shift. He sees stealing as an external action the child uses to try and soothe a really intense internal feeling, usually high stress, high anxiety.
Like self-medicating.
In a way.
Yeah.
The act of taking the thing, getting away with it, triggers a little dopamine hit in the brain, a momentary rush of pleasure or relief, and that dopamine reinforces the behavior, making it addictive, a coping mechanism gone wrong.
And like addictions, Brian Post says stealing is predictable. This is that A to Z principle again, right? We tend to zero in on Z, the kid caught stealing at the store.
Right. But the need, the rising stress, the pattern that led to the stealing, that started way back at A or B or C. Maybe it started with feeling disconnected that morning or overwhelmed at school.
So the intervention isn't about punishing Z.
No. It's about understanding the whole pattern and intervening way back at A, disrupting the process. And that starts with a specific kind of conversation held when everyone is calm, not in the moment of crisis.
Okay, what does that calm conversation sound like?
You approach it non-judgmentally. You acknowledge the pattern you've noticed. Something like, hey, I've noticed that sometimes when you seem really stressed out or anxious, you end up taking things that don't belong to you. And maybe that makes you feel a little bit better just for a short time.
Just stating the observation?
Exactly. Then comes the really crucial part, the preemptive ask.
This is where you offer connection before the stealing happens.
Precisely. You create an opportunity for secure attachment to meet the need before they act out. You say something like, so here's what I'm asking. Before you feel like you need to go and take that thing, could you try coming to me first? Just tell me how you're feeling. I promise I won't even try to stop you from taking it later if you still feel you need to, but I just want a chance to help you feel better first.
Wow. That requires a lot of trust from the parent.
It does. It shifts the focus from controlling the behavior to offering relationship as the solution. But that's just the communication piece. Brian Post stresses there's a second vital step with stealing. Containment.
Containment, what does that mean exactly?
It's absolutely crucial. He explains that a child who steals is often operating from a very young emotional place. They're regressed. Think of a 2-year-old who just takes whatever they want because they don't have internal boundaries yet.
Okay.
The parent's job is to provide the external containment. Clear, firm, physical boundaries. This isn't punishment. It's structure. It's recognizing they can't manage it internally yet, so you provide the walls externally.
He gives that example of Kevin, right? The adopted boy in the group home who kept taking things.
Yes. The staff kept having meetings about discipline, consequences. Nothing worked. Brian Post came in and said, basically, you need containment. Lock the office doors, secure the desirable items, remove the opportunity physically.
So, child-proofing the environment for their emotional age.
Exactly. It provides the necessary external boundary that defines what's theirs and what isn't, without shaming the underlying need or stress that's driving the behavior.
That makes sense. And it flows right into Section 4, Defiance. This one feels huge for parents. Brian Post anchors this section with a quote from Bruce Perry, right?
Yes, a really powerful one. An oppositional defiant child is a scared child, period.
Defiance equals fear.
That's the core insight. Defiance, that shutdown, is often the freeze response kicking in. You ask them to do something simple, like put on their shoes, but their amygdala fires off. It links that request, maybe subconsciously, to past experiences of feeling powerless, controlled, or unsafe.
And the brainstem gets stirred up.
Right, connecting to old trauma or stress patterns. So the freeze, the no, isn't really about the shoes. It's the nervous system screaming, I can't. Compliance feels dangerous right now.
But as parents, what's our immediate reaction usually?
Control. Our own amygdala flares up. We see the defiance as a challenge to our authority. Our brain goes, must regain control, and bam, we're locked in a power struggle.
Totally missing the fear underneath.
Completely missing the dynamic. So Brian Post's strategy here is, well, it's really counterintuitive. He says you have to give in.
Give in. Like, let them do whatever they want.
No, not give in to the behavior necessarily. It's about giving in to their energy, their process. It means acknowledging and accommodating the fact that they're in a regressed, fearful emotional state rather than fighting against it.
Okay, how does that look practically? How do you give in without just abdicating?
It starts, as always, with the parent regulating themselves. Slow down. Breathe. Be really present. Don't get sucked into the tornado. Then, crucially, anticipate the no. Expect it.
Why is anticipating it so important?
Because if you know it might be coming, you're less likely to be caught off guard and react defensively when it happens. You can stay calmer. And then, the most important step, connect before you direct.
Connect before correction.
Always. Before you even make the request, maybe for shoes or homework or whatever, connect first. Offer a hug, a gentle head rub. Check in. Hey, you seem a bit wiggly. Need a snack?
Yeah.
Get that connection flowing first. Then maybe make the request gently.
It softens the whole interaction.
It totally changes the dynamic. And this whole approach, Brian Post argues, stands in stark contrast to a lot of mainstream parenting tools.
Yeah, he has some strong critiques there.
He really does. He suggests that many common techniques, things like timeouts, spanking obviously, but also sticker charts, elaborate consequence systems, yelling, even sometimes medication, can often be rooted in managing behavior through fear or emotional repression, rather than teaching skills.
They're about control, not connection.
Exactly. He draws a line back to the original meaning of discipline, which is to teach. If the method isn't actually teaching the child about connection, about self-regulation, about safety, then it's probably just punishment in disguise.
Okay, so we've covered lying, stealing, defiance, these big challenging behaviors. The common thread running through all of Brian Post's work seems to be this. Your understanding of what's happening underneath the behavior is what has to guide your action.
Precisely. It's not about finding some magic wand technique. It's about fundamentally shifting how you see the child's stress and fear and your own role in that dynamic.
It's not rocket science, as he says, just a different understanding.
A profoundly different understanding.
Yeah.
And that understanding needs to lead to action, right? Which brings us to the homework, the practical exercise Brian Post recommends for anyone learning this. It uses that A to C principle we talked about.
Right. So for you listening, the challenge is to actually draw this out. Get a piece of paper and draw 3 lines representing A to Z, 1 for lying, 1 for stealing, 1 for defiance.
And the point isn't to figure out how to fix Z, the behavior itself. The exercise is to brainstorm all the little things, the variables, the points in the process that happen before Z. What's going on at A, at B, at C?
So instead of just reacting to the lie, Z, you might list things you can influence earlier. Things like, Making sure we have unhurried cuddle time in the morning. A, or giving a high-protein snack 20 minutes before transitions.
B, or doing a quick head rub and checking in 5 minutes before I need to ask him to do something. C, you list all these potential points of influence at the beginning of the chain reaction.
It forces you to become a detective of the pattern.
Exactly. It shifts your whole focus from trying to fix the outcome, Z, to influencing the process way back at A. It's about recognizing these behaviors aren't random. They're part of a sequence you can influence.
Okay, so that's the actionable takeaway. Draw your A to Z charts. What's the final thought we want to leave people with today, drawing from Brian Post's work?
I think it's this. These behaviors, as scary and overwhelming as they feel in the moment, aren't actually new. They're usually the same patterns, driven by the same underlying stress and fear, showing up again.
Right.
The real change, the real transformation, doesn't come from trying harder to fix the child. It comes from getting intensely curious, regulating yourself, choosing to give in to the process of connection, and focusing everything on building rock-solid safety and trust. Because ultimately, as Brian Post reminds us constantly,
if you don't trust me, I can't keep you safe.
that's the foundation. Everything else builds on that.